The protocol in question here is the spanning tree protocol. So the spanning tree protocol essentially elects a root switch or a root bridge to determine the pathways through the network. And just like a tree, it doesn't branch, when it branches out, it doesn't loop back upon itself. So in this case, we find our suboptimal paths through our network and figure that that's going to be a block path. On a blocked port, it doesn't receive or send any user data. The only thing it actually receives are bridge protocol data unit traffic, the spanning tree protocol that tells that port to remain in a blocking state. Now, if we lost our path, like in this particular case, if the uppermost switch, the one that's not the root there, the right-hand side on the top part of this path, if that port were to go down, or the whole switch were to go down, the pathway would figure out that that block port needs to go back into a forwarding state and send user traffic. Now, how long that takes is called convergence time. And later on, when we really delve into spanning tree, we'll discover how to minimize that convergence time between switches and other switches in our network. Generally, you can figure that could be around 50 seconds, which doesn't really correspond well when you're talking about networks that have to remain a 5 nines of reliability. That's only 4 minutes, 5 minutes of downtime a year, so 50 seconds due to spanning tree isn't exactly something you want to look for as far as your 5 nines of reliability. So we'll talk about ways to make spanning tree work faster for you within your network, but that's not part of this course. I just want to introduce the possibility of loops within a switch network so that you're aware of potential problems. As you get into the CCNA course, we'll talk more about it, and we'll delve very deeply into the topic. If you go as far as the CCNP course, the BCMSN course has a great deal of material that we talk about specifically with respect to spanning tree. Lastly, let's finish off this section talking a little bit about troubleshooting. Now, troubleshooting needs to be looked at with a layered approach. As we discussed with the OSI reference model, I want you to troubleshoot in the same manner. Start with layer 1. Always check your physical connection first. Then move up to your layer 2 issues as far as your layer 2 switched devices. So specifically when troubleshooting layer 2 switches, here's what I'd like you to do. First, most of the problems I run into with switches have to do with a layer 1 problem. They have to do with the cable's damaged or something's wrong with the cable, so check the physical first. Then check possible issues happening with the framing of the packets with layer 2 and packets moving through the switch themselves. So let's go through some of the things you might run into specifically. As far as media issues, there's lots of different possible explanations for problems at layer 1. The wiring could be cut or damaged. You could have electromagnetic interference on your network. So EMI sources are somehow introduced onto your network in a way that's going to damage the overall transmission of the traffic. You could have issues where your traffic patterns completely change and could have very adverse effects on the way the network is operating. You can install new equipment on your network. Oftentimes, when you're troubleshooting things, the first thing you ask is, what did you change? And, when they say, well, we just added this new firewall. It was just like the old firewall and the same model. We just put the same configuration on it. Should be fine, right? And, of course, your customer really isn't going to say that. You know what they're really going to say? When you ask them the question, what did you change? They're going to say, nothing. Nothing changed at all. Only 3 hours into it will they explain to you that they added a new firewall or put something new in the network. So just expect that with your troubleshooting. This is coming from a guy who's actually sat on the line and taken calls via tech support. So, so those kind of media issues or change of equipment things are definitely stuff I'm going to look at first. I want to identify any kind of changes or possible damages to the physical layer. Usually, though, physical layer things are pretty straightforward. If it's a physical issue, I look over, there's no link light on the front panel of the box, I figure something's wrong with the cable. Or I'm doing a show interface command, I see it's down. I'm usually looking at the physical layer issue and trying to solve problems there.